Hello, I'm Oliver Head, and for 26 years I've been a radio presenter. For 16 of those, I've read traffic and travel news. A brief history of that: in 2009 I started on commercial stations like Gold, Atlantic in Cornwall, Star in Bristol, Nova in Weston-super-Mare, most of these stations now long gone. I then went on to BBC Locals in about 2011. I covered various areas, but the main ones were Wiltshire, Bristol, Somerset, Gloucestershire and Solent. That came to an end in May 2020 when the BBC took presentation in-house. In September 2020 I started on Greatest Hits Radio. Again, I've done various areas over the years. My final lineup was Wiltshire, Bristol, which incorporated surrounding areas like Bath, Yate and Portishead. Also Somerset, Dorset, Devon, Cornwall and Cambridgeshire. Yeah, they put that on my morning shift for the last 6 weeks I was on air. Bizarre, isn't it? All of it's now finished for me as AI is taking over, or likely already will have done by the time this video gets published. So Greatest Hits will still have travel news, but it'll be read out by an AI voice. Instead of humans, you'll hear Robotron 5000. Let me quickly clear something up. I worked for Imrix. They're a traffic and travel company, used to be called Traffic Link. Much like the Met Office provide weather for whoever needs it, Imrix provide travel news for whoever wants it. So I never actually worked for the BBC or Greatest Hits Radio. Speaking of weather there, for some reason many people thought I was a weather presenter. There have been dozens of times where I've been chatting with someone and my job's come up, and you would have thought words like traffic, travel and roads would have given it away, but no. So many people thought I did the weather. I did not do the weather. It was the goddamn traffic news. I don't know how that is so hard to understand. Not weather, traffic. I even had one guy where I explained my job. He then said, "So how long have you been doing the weather?" I bluntly corrected him and explained it all again, and then he said, "Oh right, interesting. So what's the weather going to be like tomorrow?" Back to traffic, it's likely no great trade secret that every one of my Greatest Hits bulletins were pre-recorded. None were done live. Sorry if I've just spoiled that for you. They had to be recorded as I was on various areas at the same time. To this end, the bulletins had to be a certain length, that being between 29 and 29.99 seconds long. If it was 28.99 or 30 or more, you couldn't send it. They were recorded in my home studio in Warminster, Wiltshire, which is where I'm sitting now. The number one question I got asked was, where do you get your information from? Well, working for Imrix, that was very easy. There's an editing team and they're in contact all hours of the day with national highways, police, CCTV control rooms. There are calls that come in from the public, social media, although you've got to be especially careful with that one. And all this gets put onto a database. Ultimately, the way for me and others to access that is a website called Imrix Radio. I've got access to some of the sources our editors use, so we'll check out those, and some other things I use to put bulletins together. Software-wise, most stuff is browser-based. I can't show you everything because of IP and copyright. The first thing I can't show you is Tab 1, the National Highways Cameras website. National Highways look after the big and busiest roads. Around our neck of the woods here in the southwest, it's routes like the M4, M5, A303 and A36. Anyway, I can't show you this site because you need a login and members of the public can't sign up. You need to be an official body like a government department that needs traffic news, or someone like Imrix to get a login. For anyone that does have access, once you do get in, there's a map and links to cameras. It always takes me 2 goes to log in though, due to some kind of fault, and after the first attempt it says, "System error, contact the administrator if this happens regularly." But it's never been fixed. There's also some other issues where the map jumps around every few seconds as if it's trying to refresh, and there's what I guess is a memory leak. If you leave it logged in for 20 plus minutes, it eventually uses between 12 and 13 gigabytes of RAM, so you've got to close it and start again. It doesn't matter what browser you use, you get the same result. A lot of the actual cameras don't work, and this has been the case for years, at least in the southwest. Camera unavailable is a common sight, and many of the ones that do work are pointing at the sky or a nearby field rather than the road. Some have a scrambled picture rendering them useless. Also, on the front page of this website, it's got Highways England plastered all over it, and it even says, "Welcome to the Highways England traffic cameras system." It hasn't been Highways England for 4 years, it's National Highways. This website has its uses, but as you can tell, a lot of limitations. When you do manage to view a camera, it refreshes every 6 seconds. Some accounts have a live streaming option, which is much more useful, but mine is the static image version that refreshes. Anyone can view these cameras, if you like, on other websites. Search for M4 cameras or A38 cameras and you'll get them, but they don't tend to refresh as often as 6 seconds and certainly don't stream. What I can show you is what's on screen now, another National Highways website. IMRIX has a login for this and I've hidden the username, but members of the public can get to this site and you don't even need an account. It's a way of showing congestion, incidents, roadworks and whatever else on their roads. And it's a Friday night, so at the moment there's nothing going on. This site has been duplicated onto another tab, and this is showing the highways signs page. This is literally what drivers see on the matrix signs on the motorways or whatever national highways road they're on. It's especially useful as often the signs are set before anything else, as you need to give drivers a heads up ASAP that there's a problem, so it's often given me an early warning so I can mention it on the air. And at the moment I've got the M4 23 to 17 selected, and here are the signs. M4 closed 16 to 15 is a planned closure. But we can have a scroll down, and there it is. X is next. This is a dedicated account I used for travel news, although it has come in handy for personal stuff from time to time. Follow me if you want, OJ Travel, but this account will now likely lay dormant. I follow anything on here remotely to do with travel, urban traffic control rooms, council highways departments, national rail, GWR, SWR, cross-country, ferries, buses, you name it. Google Maps with traffic switched on. The colours indicating traffic levels are very good, although it can be hypersensitive sometimes. The place names on Google are not so good. There's some bizarre names that are just nonsense, or the suburbs in Bristol, for example, aren't necessarily where they should be, which is also why I have OpenStreetMap and Ordnance Survey maps open as well, and these are excellent. So if we zoom into a bit of Bristol, we can then see Broomhill, Stapleton, Lockleys, Horfield. Those place names are exactly where they should be. Waze, you may have come across this. This is for people with the Waze app to report an incident, so people who are out there on the roads. You need to take that with a pinch of salt because, in theory, anyone can report anything if they wanted. Causeway 1.network or Causeway 1 Network. An obvious name, much like IMRIX. This lists roadworks. Often there's duplicate icons or it's not clear if the work is 24/7 or not, so you've got to watch out for that. But if we go to one of these, let's have a look in Bath. Click here and we can see that Bath Street is closed. Or we can scroll across to Hilperton and we can see there's temporary traffic lights on Elizabeth Way. The Tamar Bridge, which also shows details for the Torpoint Ferry, I used that on Greatest Hits Cornwall. The last batch of sites I can't display as they contain personal and or confidential information. Remote desktop is one. Some IMRIX stuff you can't access from the web, like bulletin send history. This will tell you what rules were sent where and when, if any were late, and when the next batch need to be sent. I do have a feed schedule telling me when I need to send audio, but having done it for so long, that's all in my head. Bulletin recorder is next. The audio goes into here and you can send it from there at the appropriate time to the appropriate place. 2 lots of email. The first is to do with scripts. We send these to BBC Local and various commercial stations. They're auto-generated, but one of the duties us broadcasters had to do is manually check these scripts to ensure they read well and didn't have any other areas. This inbox brings all those scripts together as sent, so we could easily check them and feedback if needed. The sort of areas I checked were related to my patches, so Bristol, BBC Solent, BBC Wiltshire, for example. Then my personal email and Teams. There have been other lesser used sites I've used before that are not shown here. I only use as and when, like train departure boards and the St Maur's Ferry in Cornwall. Earlier I mentioned the website IMRIX Radio, which you can see is set up in a separate window. There's various tabs within that broken down into my various areas, although BBC Wiltshire, Oliver, you said you stopped doing the travel for the BBC 5 years ago. I used the BBC Wiltshire profile, as we call it, for Greatest Hits Wiltshire, as myself and my manager agreed it was better suited because it included more areas in the patch. That's the reason. I can't show you this website either, as it's an INRIX thing. There used to be some help videos that our top bod Rob Clayton put together, but for whatever reason they've all been taken off YouTube, so I can't even point you there. Although, if you go onto Google Images and search for INRIX Radio, you'll see some screenshots from the help page, should you be interested in what that looks like. The INRIX Radio site lists everything our editors have put on, anything roads-wise for the here and now, crashes, breakdowns, vehicle fires, burst water mains, also a list of roadworks, public transport problems, issues at the airport, train disruption and ferry troubles, public transport planned like train engineering, events, anything that's going to cause delays like Glastonbury Festival, Summer Solstice at Stonehenge and the Isle of Wight Festival, and finally alerts. These are mainly used for weather warnings. It's going to rain here, you may see floods on the roads. Lastly, in terms of software, Adobe Audition version 1.5, the best out of the lot. No version before or after has come close. Yeah, it's 21 years old now and has various bugs that will never get fixed, but these are minor and the software is brilliant. I recorded all my bulletins into this, top and tailed them, adjusted levels if need be, and then imported the audio into Bulletin Recorder, which I touched on earlier. I could have recorded and edited everything straight into Bulletin Recorder, but when you've got Audition, you're going to use it. And here's an example bulletin I did earlier for Bristol. That's a look at the software. Now let's check out the hardware. My laptop is the brains of it all, which I custom spec'd. It's nice and fast, including boasting 64GB of RAM, which is overkill, although if you have certain websites with a memory leak, then that amount of RAM is useful. Scripts, maps, cameras, etc. are on my laptop screen, although I'm just showing Google Maps here. The second screen, connected via HDMI, which is in desktop extend mode, only has Adobe Audition. This is so I can keep an eye on the recording timer. Microphone on a small stand. This mic is a Zoom H2N. It's got a memory card in it, so you can use it as a portable recorder, or you can do what I've done and use it as a USB live microphone. It's got the windshield on as well, which is acting more like a pop shield in this context. No mixer. The downside of that means the mic is always live, but that wasn't an issue as everything was pre-recorded. Headphones are Sennheiser HD25s, custom cable soldered up by me, including a Neutrik 3.5mm jack. All other cables I've used don't last too long and they're moulded connectors, so there's limited repair potential. And that's it really, a basic setup, but that's all it needs. I was only doing traffic. It's not as if I was playing songs or needed a number of mics to interview people. There is one more thing though, and that's down there. UPS, uninterruptible power supply or battery backup. Clearly if there's a power cut, the laptop's going to stay on, but the UPS is for the second screen. I also have a UPS for an access point, an internet access point I got up here, and there's another one downstairs for my internet router. So the idea is if there's a power cut, I can stay broadcasting. There you have it. That's how Greatest Hits Radio Travel was put together in my home studio. Enjoy the AI, I'm sure it's going to sound wonderful. I'll still be on air once a week doing an actual show called Rockcetera, and that's on Warminster Community Radio, where I've been for ages, wcrfm.org.uk, and that's Thursday 9 to 11pm. Thanks for tuning in to my traffic news over all these years, and thanks for watching this. Oh. Before I go, I suppose I better say it. I'm Oliver Head. That's the latest. How many times have I said that phrase?